good.
Okay, so part B. We've taken care of our body needs. Okay, so we've got a great context of where this comes from, the inspiration, how it was birthed, almost the discovery of this work, and now we're more in the meat and potatoes. So we were just talking about that, how important it is that not only that God exists. Actually, that's something that, if I may share, that I think is really important, especially for anyone to hear, but my generation, and something that I'm becoming way more attuned to, of the importance of it, that in the New Age movement, there's such a like New Age spirituality, there's such a emphasis put on the fact that human beings create their reality. And I agree with that to a ridiculous degree. That human beings, with their actions, their thought, their minds, their heart, that we are creating reality to a ridiculous degree. That that life has given us the opportunity of a big canvas on which we can paint our lives on. And that's very empowering, and I think very important for people to know, because a lot of people, like we've talked about how sometimes people are like, oh, well, I was born in a different generation and that's not how it works. And so you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and like, this is just how it is. And there's a sort of resignation that can happen in any generation of a people. This is just how it is, so why fight for something better? This is good as it gets.
Closing the horizons,
Yes, limiting, and like in a way agreeing with misery to a certain extent, right? So it's important for everyone to know that we do create our beliefs. We end up living in. We live in our beliefs to a ridiculous degree. But now, as a 41-year-old, I'm seeing, yes, that's important. That's very vital to the mechanics of creating our life. And what you're saying, which is something you've always helped me go towards, is that there is a God out there. Many names have been referred to this all-powerful, all-loving creator, divine creator, she of 1,000 names, the goddess, spirit, the great mystery, the architect, all these different things that are pointing to this kind of all-encompassing unit of meaning.
Or more philosophical names like the uncaused cause, the principle, the source of being, the one.
Yes.
I mean, on and on and on.
On and on and on, right? Yeah. So I just want to say that that exists, whether you believe it or not. There is truth out there, and you can align with it or not. That's part of what we can do here with our free will, is we can say, I don't believe in gravity, and jump off a roof and break our leg, and then say, wait, but my beliefs create reality and I don't believe in gravity, so why did I fall? This kind of thing. But I think it's just hyper important that human beings accept that there is truth out there, whether you believe in it or not. So I remember Mother Miriam one time having a conversation with her. She's like, you can break yourself away from the truth, but you won't break the truth. And that's so important for the New Age consciousness of, free, infinite freedom, and there's no boundaries, and I'm infinite consciousness, and I'm the first one to suffer the consequences of creating my own world on my own terms, very pleasure-centered, and my fulfillment, and a lot of narcissism that happens when you basically don't bow to truth.
Yeah. If I could maybe kind of extend that in another direction. Um, to take the whole truth into account, and you've just described two different truths. You've described the truth of our ability to quote unquote create ourselves. I think we need to be a little bit careful with the verb create.
Yeah.
We use it, creativity. We know what that means, but obviously we know that ultimately there's only one creator. I mean, there's only one being that can draw something from nothing, and that creator is God. So this is a kind of an analogy. Human creativity, like a potter, needs to have clay pre-exist before it can shape it by his creativity into a beautiful pot.
Yeah.
But the potter does not create clay. He uses clay that he finds around. And the same thing with the metal worker or the sculptor using Carrara marble, or even the musician. Even the musician, the musical scale already exists.
Yeah.
And how the musician chooses to combine notes and put flats and silences and all that, that's the man's creativity.
Yeah.
But he doesn't invent sound.
Yeah, right. And the musician doesn't birth itself. Who birthed the potter?
Exactly. And plus the inspiration of the moment and all of these things. So it's extremely complex. But the only thing that I'm suggesting is that human creativity is, from the word go, or from before you even realize it, already pre-contained within divine creativity.
Yeah.
So that human creativity is one form of response to what that human creator has been made to be by the universal creator who gave that person his or her nature.
Yeah.
So in other words, I'm already conditioned and in a sense limited, but limited in a good sense. Mm-hmm. To be limited is good.
Yeah.
Otherwise we would exist as blobs of whatever protoplasm rolling around. We have to have, if we're individuals having our own uniqueness, we're a human being. We're not a dog and we're not a bear and we're not a star. Sorry, but that's a limitation.
Yeah.
But that's a good limitation because it gives us a stamp of identity. Yeah. To have an identity, to be unique, we need to be limited. Anyway, so that then whatever I create out of my uniqueness, if it is going to make me free and fulfill me, it somehow has to correspond to what I am. It somehow has to respond to the deepest needs that my nature already has. Mm-hmm. And always that involves a response to the creator who made me. So that human creativity is conditioned by divine creativity. And so in a sense, anything that we create, that reminds me of Dante saying, wait a minute, what was Dante? Dante says something like, I don't have the exact words here, but I think it's very interesting. Dante is the grandfather of art. No, Dante says that God is the grandfather of my art object. Because if God is my father and I create something which is like the child of my soul, God is its grandfather.
Yeah, nice.
And it's kind of a weird way of seeing it maybe, but it means we're in a line of life. We're in a line of a communication of life that ends up being a work of art.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't spring like mushrooms just spontaneously out of the ground. We have a history.
Yeah.
We contain a prehistory. And our prehistory is eternal and it's divine. So we have been made to be something. So what we make necessarily reflects who we are. Yeah. And so that freedom, here the category of freedom is very important, mm-hmm. that the freedom of my inspiration to create is an expression of my dependency on having been created. Mm-hmm. So somehow these two things are always working with one another in a very rich communion.
Yeah. The I see within what we're talking about is that often we don't want to be under anyone. We don't want to have a boss. We don't want to answer to anyone because we want to be free, right? And so I think, well, so there's a couple of chunks. One is that if we have a master that has our best interests in mind, like a benevolent master who is our Lord, and we, like, I think modern people, in, you know, huge generalization, aren't super good at saying like, I'm a servant. Because in this world, we all want to be rich and wealthy and famous and on top of the mountain. But that's in this, just if you're just considering this earth world. And so that's a very egoic fantasy of making it, right? But it seems that along the way, institutions, religions, governments, etc., have not been the most kind, benevolent masters, and have literally created slaves.
And therefore, I think that what you call the impulse in modern human beings towards total autonomy, you know, just go away, leave me alone, yeah. I'm going to create my world because already we've been handed down enough of a mess.
Yeah.
It's completely understandable.
It's understandable.
It's completely understandable as a reaction, as a violent reaction, defending one's own being, defending one's own survival.
Yeah, it's a trauma response.
It is.
We have PTSD from, and like you say, we're part of a lineage here, our own genealogy, our own family genes and DNA, and then our societies and our, you know, our earth family. There's a lineage there, and there have been things that have caused deep trauma in our souls and hearts and psyches, which we were talking about this at Thomas Merton's room at Our Lady of the Redwoods, which is that, you know, atrocities, genocides, murders have been committed by organizations that claim to have our best interests in mind.
That's right.
Right? And so it's a natural global response to say, no, like no moleste, boundary. We put our trust and our faith in you as an institution, and you betrayed us. Mm-hmm. And that hurts. Mm-hmm. And you also, as an institution, represent the great mystery. You're the bridge between us and like the mystical creator, right? So if that middle person violates the benevolence of we're all in this together and just good old basic human kindness and looking out for the population, then of course the population could be and then the reaction, I think, was science was just like, no, if we can't quantify this, if we can't number this and qualify this and have it all under control,
doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist because we did the faith thing and we got burnt by that, and we hit a dead end there. So out with faith, out with the mystery. We're going to focus on what we can control here, but that creates a schism.
Well, then you end up with you know, the Brave New World or the Lord of the Flies, you know, in which what you have is a reduction of human nature to what is technologically not Lord of the Flies, Brave New World. Orwell,
yes.
You know, sociological, technical, capitalistic reductions of human beings to producers, earners, spenders, and whatever else. What you see is the reduction of human nature that redefines happiness, and that basically robs human being of a soul. But alongside the heritage that we have from our sociological race, our ethnicity, our family experience, our identity, that's one line of heritage. But there's the mystical line of heritage too.
Yeah.
And that's what cannot be forgotten, destroyed,
Severed.
or even understated, because it is the one that matters. It is the one that is going to carry you through. So let us not, in our great disappointment in post-traumatic stress syndrome,
disorder,
at the sociological historical level, let us not throw out the baby with the bathwater and say, and therefore I have no heritage of any kind, and I have to recreate myself absolutely. Okay, proof, because you began by saying this, if we have a master who is benevolent, the three qualities, benevolent, wise, and powerful. Just think of those three things: power, wisdom, and goodness. See, and there's one more: beauty.
Oh yeah.
If power, wisdom, beauty, and goodness, if these are the attributes of one being who is God,
Creator,
then we're talking about something completely different. That master you want.
Yeah, exactly. I want to be that master's slave.
Exactly.
I get to be your slave, your child, your creation, your sheep.
Yes, yes.
But that's
so that the more you seem to be humiliating yourself with that terminology, the more you're really exalting yourself, because you know, to be the servant of the king of the universe, or the queen of the universe, if you want, is yourself to become royal. In other words, and can such a master exist? You said if such a master exists. Can such a master exist? I think so. And it would take a very long conversation to demonstrate. But all I have to do is look out this window and look at the world in which we live. And this week we've been talking about herds of elk up in Humboldt County.
Yeah, behind the altar.
Behind the altar. Herds of elk. Those beautiful racks of antlers that the males have. And the turkeys on the property.
The deer.
And the deer grazing.
The lizards.
The lizards. The bear that climbed over the wall, and we caught it on the videotape.
The salad bar.
Yes. The turkeys, for heaven's sakes, going over the property, and the squirrels. And you look at the world, the landscape, the trees, the seasons, and then you start looking at the stars. I mean, my goodness. To me, that is the proof. That is the proof that such a master that combines the qualities of beauty, goodness, what were the others?
Wisdom,
and power. Beauty, goodness, wisdom, and power. These are not pipe dreams. These are not the speculations of a philosophical imagination. Go out there.
Just look.
And look at those dahlias, the flowers that we were looking at yesterday, with the million petals around the center, perfectly ordered like this. Where are not creations like that, like almost like court, exhibit A, exhibit B, exhibit C, before the tribunal judgment of is there a God? These are the exhibits. And these things do not happen by random. There has to be a creative, benevolent, self-giving intelligence and wisdom that bring these things out of nothingness into being.
Yeah, and the magic is everywhere. So just if you study anything, like, who designed this hand? Look, magic, watch. Invisibly, I'm going to have a thought to move my middle finger. Like, are these bodies not proof of miracle? Like, how does this work? There's a million systems happening right inside our bodies.
You know the best thing about it? That you're doing it and you're talking about it. You're describing it in language. So there's self-awareness. There isn't only the automatic mechanism of feeding or just going about, but you are aware of it, and it causes wonderment in your contemplation of your own hand. It causes wonderment in you, and that wonderment is the seal of divinity in our imagination. The capacity as Genesis says, and God saw everything he had created, and he saw that it was very good.
It was nice.
God said,
It's good.
It'd be good.
It's good.
And now I can take my rest because it is, God's own delight in God's creation.
Yeah.
And through our wonderment and sense of admiration and gratitude, we cooperate almost in the creation by saying, yay, God, go on, do some more of that.
Yeah,
do some more of
so
that.
you make space and you open your heart for the possibility of that.
Yeah.
And then you are in the likeness of that, which is in the highest ideals, your natural expression. Because if you see, like, one thing to not get super idealistic is that there is a aspect of life that is violent.
Oh yeah.
So saying God is powerful, wisdom, good, benevolent, beauty, that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be traumas in this realm, because clearly they are. There's murders and concentration camps and sickness and cancers and lies, and so we do have to admit that that can be a difficult thing, because people can use all this atrocity and stuff, horror, to justify that if there was a God, then why isn't he here on earth, like, saving everybody now?
You're right. This is one of the hardest questions. The beginning of an answer is God is not a puppeteer. God isn't running a puppet show on earth, that he's behind the scenes, behind the little stage thing, and making all the movements and like a ventriloquist speaking all. No, God is not a puppeteer. We're speaking of creatures who, because we're in the image and likeness of God, we have the power of discernment, of intelligence, and above all, willpower. We can choose to go along with the attributes of God or not. And so we can turn goodness into hatred. We can turn evil into ugliness. We can turn creative power, which is the omnipotence of God, we can turn that into destructive power.
Yeah.
Once the ego turns back on itself, and rather than having a sense of wonderment and thanksgiving for what is out there, I choose to create an alternate, mean, private little world of my own creation, because I don't like the one that God made. Even if it's to destroy it, I want my own.
Yeah.
I want it apart. And that's perverse. That's literally taking a good thing and perverting it.
It's a deep distortion.
You know what Augustine said? I'm full of Augustine today because he has it all.
He's a winner.
He said something extraordinary, but it's matter for thought. There isn't any sin, no matter how horrible, that a human being commits, that in some way it isn't an attempt to imitate a divine virtue. There is no sin, like even the most horrible thing, rape. Rape is a violent form of lust that in some way is imitating the divine, immortal love, unconditional love. It's a perversion of divine love.
Yeah.
Because being creatures, we can't help always imitating God, even if we imitate him in a negative direction. You see what I mean?
Distorted, dark, perverse way.
That's right. We steal. And Augustine has the famous story about stealing the pears from the pear tree. Why did I steal the pears from the neighbor's pear tree? I wasn't hungry. It wasn't to satisfy my hunger. Well, it was because it was a commandment, thou shalt not steal. And to show that I am not subject to the divine law, I stole the pears. Because why should God have it all? I want to have some of what I didn't have, and so I steal it to make it mine, since I don't have it by nature. Yeah. So it's an imitation of God's abundance.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. We can only ever imitate and pervert divine virtues in our attempt to rebel against the divine order of things.
Yeah. That's perfect. It goes back to, there's truth or the distortion of it.
Yeah.
Like you can't tinker with truth.
Exactly.
And
yes.
Recently the phrase hate is hurt love.
hate is hurt love.
Yeah,
That's perfect, Alexis.
It's a trauma. So
Yeah.
Earth can be quite traumatic, and in many ways. So this is how I can stay in the light and in hope and in faith, knowing that all of this deep pain and stuff exists in life, like just horrible things. The way that I can help me stay in the light there is by a phrase that I often return to is, we've already won because we're already one. And our collective rise is inevitable. And the only way this thing's going to go is all beings anywhere and everywhere sitting together up on the throne. This is what helps me, because if I were just to believe in this world and linear science and how much money I can make and how like good of a fort and societal respect and belonging I can create for myself here, then I would despair.
Of course.
Because there'd be a deep, deep lack of existential meaning and satisfaction in that, right?
You have to live in a kind of permanent denial or oblivion of your deeper nature and its needs.
Yeah.
You would need to suppress all of that so that I can live here at the surface level with day-to-day satisfaction.
And that's why you see these millionaire people or famous people, or Jim Carrey is a good example. He's like, I thought my existential redemption and fulfillment would come from money and fame. He's like, I've reached both of those and it's not that. So I'll just let you know, like, I'm up here, guys. It's not that, right? So that's helpful. But the thing, so what we were saying about the mystical lineage, the spiritual lineage, in many ways, it's been cut off and bastardized and severed, and the clogged arteries.
In the first world culture.
Truth, because it is alive and well in many pockets of the society. I mean,
Africa,
right here,
Latin America, Asia, cultures that have stayed closer to the earth, the natural cycles, and above all, the family, human cohesion, doing for one another out of need for survival, rather than this intense American individualism, which, they say that the loneliness and sadness and therefore depression rate of Americans is the highest in the world.
And yet we're like the most privileged and
rich,
first world,
secure, etc., etc.
So there's something going on under the hood there that isn't functioning well. So
we detach from one another to become more autonomous, but that autonomy ends in a solitude that kills us.
It's isolation. It's a reaction.
It's cutting off from dependency, and you end up shriveling into this bad news.
And like the trees and the mushrooms, some trees would topple over unless they could entangle with the roots of the other trees, or the mycelial network, which on the top, it's perfect. Exemplifies this idea that, yes, you have an ego. You are Simeon. I am Alexis. We are two individualized beings. And yet, in the mycelial network, if you look underground, they're all one body. So it's even in nature, even nature is spiritual and teaching us. But the way I get back to faith and hope is that, and Viktor Frankl said this, who was in the concentration camps, is that your response to all of that, to the atrocities, to the horror, to the prisons, to the internment camps, to the genocide, your response determines how free you are or not. So that's one thing. But on a bigger level is that I deeply intuit and feel this truth in my body, that is, we are all pilgrims on our way back to the heart of the Word, the heart of God, the heart of unconditional love. We're all on our way back. And so I like to think of this deeply imperfect and painful world full of suffering as a sort of washing machine for distorted energy and vibrations that are not in alignment and not in harmony with the existence of an unconditional, benevolent, powerful, wise, good, beautiful creator, so that if I didn't have that, then this place would just be miserable wasteland.
It would be a prison cell.
It would be a prison cell, and somehow it isn't, because we have been found by God already, and so our life is more of a process of accepting that.
Well, I think your example of Viktor Frankl is very important, because there, in one example, you answer the question about our genealogy, our lineage. In other words, being a prisoner in Auschwitz and condemned to go to the gas chambers, at the purely human level, it doesn't get worse than that. I mean, nothing could be uglier, more squashing of life in a horrible, brutal way than that. And yet, his interior response, and that of many other people who were prisoners there, shows that there's a lifeline to eternity. There's a lifeline to meaning.
Yeah.
So he calls it logotherapy. Actually, therapy of the word.
Therapy of the word.
Not the word that means word, but it also means meaning, logos in Greek. So if you can manage not to sever the lifeline between your soul and your heart and mind to meaning with a capital M, the ultimate meaning, you will be okay whether you survive physically or not.
Yeah.
Even if they kill your body, your soul will joyfully ascend to the upper spheres and be united with your origin in the heart of God. But the question is not to forget, not to fall into the oblivion, or even worse, deliberate stomping out of the memory of who you are, what you have been made to be.
Yeah.
Not to forget.
Our planet in many ways is forgotten and is disconnected from that truth. The left and right brain, there's a schism. There's a schism between, science, that which can be calculated, numbered, quantified, qualified, which is all hyper sacred and important for survival and like utterly basic survival. But then there's also the other side, which is the more mystical, creative, feminine, the womb in which the focused will creates in, so that the potter with his chosen craft and tools and things, but then where does that inspiration, that creativity, the possibility of life even come from? And it seems like our world in some ways is schizophrenic. There's a schism. There's a divorce in each one of us that keeps us in this kind of half awake, half present survival mode. But a lot of the thriving and the nourishment and the connection and the existential satisfaction and the feeling safe within our own bodies, knowing that we're loved no matter how our performance is in this life and how our careers go and how much money we have, there's a lot of lack of that in this world. And I see it in terms of your paper on the refusal of joy in the banquet. Can we sort of start to wind down this part of our conversation?
Okay.
With this refusal of joy.
Can we take a little break now?
Okay.